Hello everyone, Alejandro Sanchez here with Apex Racing Academy. Today we're gonna kick things off with a track guide for week 3 of IMSA, this time in Fuji Speedway with the Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo, for which we are giving away the data pack completely free this season, both including the race and qualifying setups, and for weeks with rain, that includes also the rain setup. We are also including the endurance setup so you can race in the IMSA Endurance Series without a worry. For the data pack, we are also attaching the VLAP and OLAP files as well as the replay, so you can drop them all into your sim and compare both against my delta and then check my replay to see where I'm braking and where I'm turning in at very key points. Feel free to drop by our Discord, where we are giving support for not only the Mercedes but also every other GT3 and GTP. You just have to type in the respective chat and the coaches will get back to you as soon as possible. You can check the link in the description below. Now, let's break down the circuit. Fuji Speedway, a very technical circuit, very low grip, as is the case with every Japanese track on iRacing for some reason. The Mercedes is probably not the best car around here. It doesn't really like the 3D curves that much, but it's not completely off pace. It's sort of saved by the fact that it's a very good race car and it doesn't have that much drop off. It's very good on tires. It's gonna struggle a bit on quali, but definitely not the worst choice, but not the best either. Also, it tends to bottom out and understeer quite a bit on certain corners, which make it sometimes a very frustrating experience. So without further ado, let's dive in. You can grab this season's Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo data pack for IMSA for free by clicking the link in the description below or by going over at apexracingse.com. Let's get into the lap. For T1, you just want to stay as close as possible to this white line without driving over it. Actually, it's very important that you don't, because you will lose a lot of top speed for some reason as you drive over the grass. So be really careful with that. Lifting off before we start to brake, roughly at the 100 marker here on the left. And then I usually just look at the curve on the left for my visual reference for the actual braking zone. Quite slow to threshold, and then holding it to roughly around 85%, between 80 and 85 is roughly the sweet spot. Dropping into second unless you run a little bit too wide and carry too much entry speed where you need to shift to first, then short shift to second. Just like this, quite a late turning for the first hairpin. Using the inside curve is very important. Just here on the last part of it, in order to help the car rotate, just barely with the right rear tire, but that's just enough in order to give it that extra little bit of rotation that you need, because otherwise it's quite easy to understeer right on the exit. So keep that in mind. So yeah, bit of a late apex, then letting the entire car track wide over this curve. As long as you keep contact with the right side tires with the curve, it's gonna be fine. Very important that you take this line like this and not just keep the left side tires on this sort of gutter that the curve makes between the AstroTurf and the actual curve. It's a 3D curve also, so it's gonna upset the car quite a bit, as you see. Then back to the right side of the track to do less meters, preparing for turn 2. For turn 2, we are basically opening up the line putting the right side tires on the concrete between the curve and the grass on the right, and starting to brake roughly at the 50 meter board. Yeah, dropping it to third if you carry too much entry speed, like it was the case in this lap. And then, yeah, quite a late downshift as well in order to not upset the car too much. I think here, nowadays, if you actually touch this inside bollard, you will get a slowdown, so be careful with that. In this lap, it was quite on the limit. I got close to the edge of the grass, so yeah, that's roughly what you want to do. You also want to make sure that you hit the throttle before you actually hit the curve, because otherwise the car's going to bottom out massively. Even here it did, but it was sort of fine. And keep it in fourth, more shift to fourth right on the exit, sorry. Careful with this outside curve, because it's quite bad. It will pull you in and it will make the car do all kinds of weird stuff on the exit, so you just want to hit it as straight as possible in order to minimize the chances of that happening. So yeah, roughly what you want to do is putting the right side tires beyond the curve into the actual AstroTurf, and then sort of keeping a straight line as you get off the curve without too much of an angle, because otherwise, yeah, it starts doing weird stuff. So just like that, you need to make sure that you have more of the car on the track as you go back into, well, as the curve ends basically, because then the track limit sort of changes and the track essentially thins itself out a little bit, because you don't have as much racing surface that you can take advantage of. Now for this long right-hander, with some cars you can get away with just lifting, but for this one you need to brake. You need to keep it as tight as possible for the first part, in the second and the third one, and then in the middle. So basically, yeah, this is what I call the middle between this white line and the beginning of the concrete AstroTurf thing on the inside, right at the exit. Through here, what I usually look at is at this white line for fully lifting and for tapping the brakes in the case of this car, because otherwise it's gonna struggle with understeer quite a bit. It's like this, barely tapping the brakes, and then dropping a gear, dropping it to third, picking up the throttle quite smoothly, and using this runoff here on the right, this concrete AstroTurf thing. That I call it that, but it's really not that. It's concrete for sure, but it's not AstroTurf. But anyways, yeah, just use the entire thing on the inside in order to help the car rotate, even some grass at the exit. And then make sure that the car doesn't go any farther than the middle of the track on here on the exit, because otherwise it's going to be impossible to pull it back in time for this very tight left-hander. Now for this one, we are going to brake at the 50 marker, opening up the line over this curve here on the right, being super careful with driving too much over it, because if you actually go into the concrete part of it, it will spin the car out. For some reason it's been a bug for quite a while. I think something's not implemented correctly in the track's surface, and there's an invisible bump that will completely spin the car. So second gear, using this inside curve to help the car rotate, picking up the throttle quite early in order to help it rotate as well. Just like that, being quite patient on throttle. As you can see here, I'm not going full throttle up until this point when I'm sure that I'm not going to run too wide, and we're going to have to put the entire car over the runoff here, essentially only keeping in contact with the curve with the left side tires. There's a sweet spot between staying too tight and going too wide, and that's exactly what you gotta find when you're driving yourself around here. I think in this lap it was pretty nice. You just gotta make sure that the car doesn't want to go too wide, because otherwise you're gonna scrub off a lot of speed, a lot of exit speed, and it's not gonna make up for it on the exit, because you're just gonna lose speed all the way down the hill. So yeah, keep that in mind and try to not be too aggressive on throttle. Keep it on the right side of the track here. So there's meters drive over this curve here on the right side. Then once again driving over this curve on the right. Then we are braking roughly at the Dunlop sign. I usually just look at the white line. You can see where it stops being sort of rubbered in. That's when I start to brake. Drop it to second gear, and yeah, brake with the entire car over the curve as close as possible to the grass without driving over it, and holding the brakes to roughly around 85%. And here for the first part, you need to cut in as much as possible. We are going to hit the throttle before we actually hit the curve, just like this, in order to minimize the impact of the curve on the car. And yeah, basically just putting the entire car on the inside. Not any more than this, because otherwise the car is going to bottom out and it's going to be quite hard. And we're going to prepare for this very tight left-hander, just lifting off, No need to tap the brakes, no need to fully get off the throttle either, because the diff is gonna unlock otherwise. So it's better to just keep it on the gas and just trust that it will rotate, because it will. Then on the exit, go full throttle, and this is a very tricky part of the sector where you need to go over the sausage curve with the middle of the car in order to minimize the impact. So basically what you want to do is put the right side tires between the edge of the sausage curve and the grass. It's quite easy to get an off track, so you better get used to it and practice it out. So yeah, and the less you cut of this one, the less you commit, the more the car's gonna fly up in the air and the more time you're gonna lose. So yeah, try to find the sweet spot between aggressiveness and just safety, because that's where the lap time is in this sector. And yeah, just be careful as soon as you hit the curve, because the car's gonna not react too well. Then for the last sector, opening up the line, shifting to third for the first part. I know it's a little bit in between gears for this sector in this car. It's a bit in between second and third. I prefer to keep it in third for the first part, then drop it to second for the last one, because otherwise it feels like the engine braking is doing too much and it's gonna upset the car a little bit too much. It's gonna turn into a Beyblade essentially. So yeah, opening up the line over the curve, not driving too much over the curve actually, because it's quite aggressive profile. Any more than this is gonna probably spin up the car on entry, and we are already struggling with grip around here, as I said on the intro. Third gear, bit of a late apex. Your apex should be roughly where the bollard is here on the right, but you need to make sure you have a run into the corner and have a wide approach to it. And yeah, using the inside curve to help you rotate the car, and then letting it track wide. Be really careful with these sausage curves, because if you hit it any more than that, the car's gonna shoot up in the air and you're gonna lose a lot of time and possibly give yourself damage. Keeping it third, make sure you get off the curve before you actually start to lift off and start braking, because otherwise it's gonna spin the car out. And basically, yeah, as soon as the curve ends on the left, I start to brake. Just like this, drop it to second gear as I said, keep it relatively tight, don't go too wide into the outside here. Definitely don't want to touch this outside curve, because as you see here, it's very aggressive and it's gonna spin the car out instantly. So keep it in second, use the inside curve to help you rotate the car. Your apex should be roughly where this polar is, but yeah, as I said, don't approach it too wide, because otherwise you're just gonna do too many meters and you're just gonna miss the corner essentially. So get as close as possible to this inside edge of the curve, without driving over it. And then on the exit, just keep it as nice of an exit as possible. Just try to get as close as possible to this outside sausage without driving over it, because otherwise the car is really gonna shoot up in the air and you're really gonna get rear end damage. So yeah, keep it on the right side and only start to get wider and wider as soon as you end the curve on the right. As soon as you leave the curve on the right, sorry. So yeah, you cannot see it, but sorry. So here, there's a wide line that you need to look at for starting to brake. If you have single screens, you're a bit screwed. But if you have triples, you can sort of easily spot it. And that's usually where I start to brake for the last corner. I give it a very wide approach in order to have a nice run out of the exit of the corner, because this car struggles a bit with traction. So I prefer to improve my chances of having a nice run to the line. And the only way to do that is having a wide approach for the last corner and starting to cut in. Basically, you need to start tightening your line, at the end of this curve here on the left. So very light on the brakes, as you can see, it's sort of a transitionary phase that even exists. And then yeah, your apex should be roughly where this white square of paint is on beyond the curve and into the runoff. So yeah, then on the exit, ideally you want to put the left side tires between the edge of the curve and the beginning of the sausage curve. I know it's quite hard to do, but yeah, at the beginning the curve is a little bit less aggressive than it is right in the middle. So you can take full advantage of that and then very quickly get off the curve. Just like this, without... you need to have a very light angle on the approach to getting off the curve, because otherwise it's gonna bottom out and you're gonna lose a lot of speed. And yeah, just keep it on the left side of the track all the way to the start finish line, and that's it. Don't forget to head over to apexracingac.com or by clicking the link in the description below. Also don't forget to join the Discord server, where we are providing support for every car, not just the Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo, as well as the coaching sessions that we host on Wednesday evenings for IMSA, where a coach is gonna sit with you for anything between an hour and 2 hours, and yeah, you can just ask him voice chat whatever questions you have, and he can watch you drive in real time. So it's like a massive deal because you basically get a coaching session for free. So yeah, take full advantage of that and see you next one.